Welcome to Menopause Rescue. I'm Dr. Polly Watson. Midlife women are often caught up in a sea of symptoms. Too often, they're overwhelmed by the lack of support from mainstream healthcare. They're inundated with so-called experts who are selling solutions which may lack credibility. I'm a Menopause Society certified gynecologist with both traditional and functional medicine training. I'm here to guide you through this transition and help you decipher the facts from the fads. Armed with credible information, I hope you are empowered to rescue and restore your health, making the second half of your life your best. Welcome to Menopause Rescue. I'm your host, Dr. Polly Watson. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by Caroline Pope and Taylor Pope. Together, Caroline and Taylor are the co-owners of Chain Effect, which is a gym in Raleigh. They also provide nutrition services, physical therapy services, and they have body composition analysis. So I've been working with Caroline and Taylor both as a patient and as a collaborative physician in the area for many years now, and they're a great resource. So I'm so excited to share this conversation with you around menopause and muscle.
Welcome to the Chain Effect podcast, where a physical therapist and a dietitian married with 2 kids juggle the struggle of running a business, raising a family, and prioritizing our own health, all while trying to have as much fun as possible.
We're your hosts, Taylor Pope, Doctor of Physical Therapy, and
Caroline Pope, registered dietitian.
Together, we own and operate a health facility bringing together physical therapists, dietitians, personal trainers, and active recovery services to create what we call the Chain Effect.
Chain Effect.
Hey, I'm Dr. Polly Watson. I'm a gynecologist who specializes in menopause and sexual medicine, and I also have certification in functional medicine. And I'm so excited to publicly be able to celebrate a collaboration with Chain Effect because I send a lot of my patients to your practice and use both of your services. And I've used both of your services, and it's just super fun to be able to share how our team can kind of work together with our communities.
Absolutely.
Yes. And we thank you for sending clients. I know I get a lot of clients that are interested in functional medicine doctors, just needing to, needing extra help, needing someone to listen to them a little bit longer and go outside the box.
And the cool thing is, when Polly's clients come to us, they already have the message that they need to strength train, they need to manage their blood sugar, they need to do all these things. So it really makes it easy that you've already prepped them for all the important things, and now we just get to deliver on the execution of it. So yeah, we thank you for your continued message, and we need more people to hear this message and deliver it to the masses. So I'm glad we get to use our combined platforms to do this today.
Well, when you think about chronic disease in this country right now, if we could fix sarcopenia, the loss of lean muscle mass, and we could create really tight blood sugar regulation, we could probably really decline dementia, cardiovascular disease, cancer, autoimmune disease. There's so many things if we could just get those 2 things right. So maybe that's a take home with all the health noise, and should you be keto, and should you be vegan, and should you be, if you can maintain your muscle mass and have really solid blood sugar control, we could stop a lot of disease in its tracks before it happens. So that's why strength training is so important, and adequate nutrition and adequate protein are so important.
And not to mention just make life more fun, because the stronger you are, the more active you can be.
The more you can do.
The more expansive your circle of involvement can be. I remember, we took a course not too long ago, and one of the things they talked about was this idea between specificity and complexity. And, one of the things was, okay, what's the best exercise for the hamstrings? Well, that would be the hamstring curl machine. But it's not super functional in your day-to-day life, and it's not super functional as an athlete doing athletic things. And so even though as we ramp up that complexity and we're doing more and more things, what we're really doing, we're being less specific, but we're also really broadening the scope of what we're able to do from a participation standpoint.
What percentage of your patients come to you and are doing strength training?
I'd say probably not enough. I think that Taylor mentioned functional motions or functional exercise. I guess, first of all, we want to encourage patients to do whatever movement that they will do, right? So we absolutely want to embrace first get moving. And if you love Pilates, that's fantastic. Do Pilates. However, if you're strapped in a reformer machine and you're moving in one direction, is that a movement pattern that you can take out and use in the world versus if you're learning how to squat and lift something that might help you bend down and pick up a grandchild, a functional motion better than maybe something that was less functional, or like Taylor was saying, that hamstring curl machine, right? We're not in life laying on our bellies with a little bar, behind our ankles, right? We're like
That's a great
in
point.
Western North Carolina pulling cartons of water off or trying
Mm,
to, with our friends, lift a tree off something, right?
mhm.
So we really want to help people as we're thinking about aging better moving forward, those functional motions. So maybe Taylor could talk about that a little bit, because I think that I certainly want to embrace exercise that people love to do. Like I swam a lot this summer. I swam and I lifted weights, but I swim because it's good for my mental health. I do it with my friends. The birds are chirping. I'm outside. That's fantastic. But in terms of longevity work, I might do better doing a HIIT workout and lifting weights and not wearing myself out with long, slow cardio, right? And I
Mhm.
kind of learned that by the end of the summer. I'm like, dude, my times are getting worse, not better. I think this is a little too much for me, right? So finding that balance between what you enjoy and also getting the work done, so that if you think about longevity building exercises, like weightlifting and functional exercises are really where it's at. Do you think you could tell us a little bit more about functional motions so that people who maybe aren't familiar know what we're talking about?
Yeah, sure. So at Chain Effect, one of the things that we like to emphasize is pattern development. And there's a lot of literature out there about primitive patterns and primal patterns, but essentially you can think about it as the main way that the body was designed to move from a mechanical standpoint. So the easiest way to break that down is into a push, think of a push up, a pull, think of a row or a pull up. And we typically break those down into horizontal presses and vertical presses, horizontal pulls and vertical pulls. And then for the lower body, we're talking about hip hinging and knee hinging. So hip hinging being more of a traditional RDL or Romanian style deadlift, or knee hinging, which is more of a squat or a lunge. And then with the core, we're mainly talking about rotational movements or anti-rotational movements. There's also, different types of, sagittal plane movements where you're like doing butterflies or dead bugs or things like that. But, those are most of the primitive patterns. And so first we want to improve the quality and make sure people are able to isolate those and do those intentionally. So you're doing the movement that you want to do, and then we load them, and we
Mm-hmm.
load them with a lot of slow eccentrics first, where we're trying to move with a lot of control. And then as we are feeling more and more comfortable with that, we start to add speed into those movements, which is going to help develop power. And a lot of people are, think, well, why would I need to develop power? I don't really play a sport anymore or things like that. But power is the thing that makes you feel really athletic and confident that you can do things like catch yourself if you trip on a root and you're falling toward the ground,
Mm.
right? Be able to catch yourself with your hands, or lift a heavy item over your head, with control, and make it easy. So things just get a lot easier when you have some power in your regimen. So that's really the formula that we use.
And I think the why for a lot of folks could be grandchildren, right?
Yeah.
You want to be able
Yeah.
to get on the ground with your grandkids, play with them, pick them up. And if they run out in the street, you need some freaking power to react,
Yeah.
right? You need to intellectually be able to respond, and you need to physically be able to respond. So that's a why that maybe a lot of people could kind of tack onto.
Well, what's interesting, not to interrupt you, is just that how many of our clients, especially our older clients, will have this mindset coming in of, well, I'm older, so I don't really need to be lifting those heavy things, or, shouldn't you scale this back, for this is probably for a younger person, or, I don't think I should be lifting more and more. I should probably be doing higher and higher reps with less and less
Mm,
weight. And really, it couldn't be more opposite. What I always tell people is what you've heard in life is that you're you're going to get weaker and weaker after a certain age. But the reality of that is it's really just your top end potential for strength that is going to go down as you age. You can get stronger at any age. And
mhm.
so, unless you're at your absolute top threshold, you have a lot of room to grow in strength every single year. And so, my goal for a lot of our clients and for myself and Caroline's goal is we want to be stronger next year than we were this year and the following year and just keep that going. And so we have this concept of long-term athletic development. And even if you don't consider yourself an athlete, having that athletic mindset is critical for developing strength over the course of your lifetime.
And maybe I can just jump in because I think that particularly when we're thinking about women in strength training, part of success, and we're going to be reaching out to Caroline for her expertise here, is I see so many women in the menopausal space. They're putting on some belly fat, and their first thought is to restrict, restrict, restrict.
Mm,
But and that might have been part of my problem this summer, right? I was really exercising 6 days a week, and I was getting slower and slower and slower. And one of the first questions you should ask is, are you fueling enough, right? So
Yeah.
if we're doing this progressive muscle overload to try to build more lean muscle mass, lift the heavy weights so that we can change our metabolic state, we really need to fuel that. So Caroline, can you kind of jump in about helping women understand that, so if they're putting the time in at the gym, they are able to fuel themselves so they can meet their goals rather than just wear themselves out.
Yes, yes. I see that all the time, that underfueling or, hey, my body's changing. I'm doing the same things I've always done. So let me just stop eating, or let me just skip breakfast, or let me just cut calories. And what you're losing is protein, usually, but also vegetables, fiber, a lot of these antioxidants and vitamins and
Mhm.
minerals that help play a role in building muscle as well. And protein is this magic word these days. Everyone knows, I think, to get more protein, they're just pounding the protein. However, our needs are a lot greater to build muscle mass than we ever thought before. And research is showing that. So women, especially perimenopausal, postmenopausal women, it is harder as you age to build more muscle. So you do need more protein to do that. But we don't want to just pound it without a balanced diet, because that could lead to some constipation. That could lead to just not feeling as great, not having as much energy as well. But the recommendations are really increasing. So that is the number one thing to build muscle that we need to work on in the diet. And, for a lot of women, I might start at, let's say 80 grams a day. And that is a really hard for women to get, even that sometimes.
Mm.
Then we try to push it up. So we always meet them where they're at and then
Mhm.
build up, as far as protein goes, making sure they're really efficient protein sources if the volume is too much. And then trying to get up to upwards of 100 grams a day, more depending on size and what their goals are. And they're trying to build that lean muscle mass. But I think a concept a lot of people don't understand, either when they're cutting calories, is you're not going to build muscle if you're not eating enough protein, enough fuel for the
Mhm.
exercise. And that's going to actually slow down your metabolic rate if you're not building
Mhm.
that lean muscle mass,
mm,
Mhm.
because we know that muscle just takes more energy day to day. So that increases our resting energy expenditure. And that's what helps us lean as well. So we do need to fuel our workouts, and then post workout, getting, some carbs and some protein to replenish. But we also, that's going to help us build lean muscle mass so that our calories burned day to day, even if we're just laying on the couch, are going to go up. And that's going to help keep our fat down.
And
Yeah,
I think what's so
absolutely.
important after working with so many of your clients and, having those introductory conversations about protein with my clients is
Hmm.
that everyone thinks they're getting enough. Everyone's like, "Oh, I eat eggs in the morning." And they're like, "Okay, well, let's add that up. How many eggs do you have?" And they're like, "2." And
That's 12
well,
grams of
that's great.
protein.
Yeah, 12 grams of protein. Like, where's the other 80 coming from? And so I think, just trying to get people to measure it. just do it for a couple days. Like, go ahead and just write down. Don't change a thing, but just write down exactly how much protein you're
Mhm.
getting in grams. And it's astonishing about how under proteined most people
Yeah,
are.
well, we talk a lot about the most efficient protein sources. If it's a struggle eating more for women, let's make it more efficient protein sources without the calories going crazy high. But if you compare, okay, an ounce of chicken is 35 calories and that's 7 grams of protein. Well, a tablespoon of peanut butter is close to 100 calories, but only 3 to 4 grams of protein.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, there's a lot of education around reading labels and actually knowing how much protein is in certain foods. And it can be surprising for most people because they're like, what? I thought I was pounding protein all day long. And, it's just not enough. It's just not enough.
Oh, I just wanted to jump in about the protein conversation with the overnight oats thing really came in, and people were having basically straight carbs for breakfast. And they're like, oh, but I put a tablespoon of peanut butter in. And I'm like, yeah, that's mostly a fat source, which is great. You're going to
Hmm.
balance out the blood sugar
Hmm.
spike from your oats. But could you put some collagen protein in there? If you tolerate dairy, can you put some yogurt in there? Like, how do we get that
Right.
overnight oat up? So yeah, I see that struggle with the protein is something we talk about a lot, and is I think really hard to do in an exclusively plant-based diet. I think it's
Mhm.
talking about
Yes.
efficient sources of protein, particularly in the perimenopausal time when we're processing carbohydrates less efficiently. It's harder to get glucose in the cell. We tend to have a little bit more abdominal belly fat kind of. If your protein sources are beans and rice, which are also carbohydrate sources, it's
Hmm.
really hard to hit that protein goal and not have just an insane amount of carbs.
Right.
Mhm.
And starting the day, going back to the breakfast thing, starting your day with a bunch of carbs is not great for that insulin resistance and your
Mm-hmm.
blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And often, we start craving carbs more if we start the day with a really dense carb meal.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a lot of people don't want eggs, or a lot of people may
Mhm.
not, they don't feel like getting too creative at breakfast. So Taylor and I have talked about this recently. I'm like, dinner for some people have dinner for breakfast,
Mm-hmm.
leftovers. Let's reframe our thought process about what these meals could be. You could have chicken and broccoli for breakfast. Yeah, that might sound boring to some people, but maybe you have a stir fry for breakfast if you don't care that much. Maybe you have more of a lunch and dinner meal, and that can open up a lot more possibilities and make it more tangible.
A friend of mine, one of my teammates, is an MD, and I just have to talk about his breakfast for a
It's
second because
amazing.
I was asking him, what his macros were, and he doesn't really track, but he's super lean and fit, and his breakfast is in a walk, and he does purple
Uh-huh.
cabbage, walnuts, and edamame, and then uses
Nutritional
nutritional
yeast
yeast and
on top.
avocado, and then he took a picture of it. It's got some olives in there, and it's just like this, concoction of what's really healthy power, right? So it's got
Mhm.
all the things, and he's getting a lot of his produce in like
And
first thing
and
in the morning.
fiber, a lot of produce and
Yeah,
fiber and healthy fats and not a lot of carbs. So I think it's a
yeah.
it's very colorful
But I
too.
was just blown away, and it does kind of, I think breakfast is one of those things that the less you think about it, that whole concept of willpower, right? The
Mm-hmm.
more decisions you have to make,
Mm-hmm.
in the morning will diminish your willpower for later on in the evening. Well, trying to like tweak your breakfast routine into like this super powerful, I'm going to start my day off with like the most incredible, healthiest breakfast can really, kind of kickstart your day and help you make good decisions the rest of the day. And I do think, you're always on me trying to get more produce in, trying to get more vegetables
Like,
in
where's the color?
first thing in the morning. And I'm just like, yeah, 2 eggs and, a piece of toast. But I think, if you can really get it, fit that into your routine, you're going to do so well. And one of the things you talked about with the overnight oats and just starting your day off with flat carbs, what I see from a performance standpoint is that a lot of our clients will start the session, they'll have a pretty decent boost of energy, but then they fall out. Like they
Crush.
have no endurance.
Yeah.
So like they're up and then they just spike right down
Right.
because they don't have any of that protein to really kind of hold
Yeah.
them through.
So we have a smoothie for breakfast, and like I cannot tell you how much I hide in that smoothie that my kids don't know is there. So this morning, our smoothie has almond milk, wild blueberries, avocado. I put almost an entire container of broccoli sprouts in. So again, thinking
Mm.
about food that's really dense, broccoli sprouts have 500 times more sulforaphane than broccoli. And sulforaphane, from a hormone perspective, is sort of giving estrogen luggage tags to get out of the body. You want to sort of rent estrogen, not store it. So if like someone's really struggling with detox, it's a food way to sort of help them detox. So I put a whole package of broccoli sprouts in, and we use the Four Sigmatic. It's a mixed protein powder, and then I put collagen protein powder. Then I put lion's mane mushroom and reishi mushroom in there. So
Whoa.
like there's
Whoa, I
a
need that
lot of
recipe.
different things, but the kids are leaving the house with a fruit, a vegetable, a fat, a calcium source, a protein source, and I'm like, okay, cool. If your smoothie may be 400 calories, I don't care. You are fueled for lunch, and it is
Yes.
Yeah.
easy, and I don't have to think about it. But it
Yeah.
is so
You're in the
funny.
rhythm of it.
They're like, the frozen cauliflower did not fly in the smoothie. So I have tried to
Yeah.
hide lots of things
I
in there.
occasionally try some different vegetables and it does not fly, but some stuff, and I love the idea of sprouts because it is, these microgreens are superfoods and that's a great idea for a smoothie. Instead of just spinach, let's take it
Right.
up a notch.
Yeah.
What is your view on, tell me about alcohol during perimenopause,
Dun,
menopause,
dun.
because and I think I know what you're going to say, but it's important to talk about the beverages too, and
Right.
and how your body's changing and what effect that may play.
Okay, so I'm absolutely officially no fun. I'm just going to lead with that. Um, we Alcohol is a carcinogen. It's responsible for 7 different kinds of cancer. So a lot of women come into my office and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm afraid to take bioidentical hormones because I'm worried about breast cancer." But they're drinking a bottle of wine a week or maybe every 2 days, right? That is way more impactful for their breast cancer, their colon cancer, pancreatic cancer, all these other cancers than the bioidentical hormone risk, which I would argue is
Mhm.
negligible. And so the other thing when we're thinking about the perimenopausal transition, our sleep is disrupted as progesterone is going down, and the metabolites of alcohol make glutamine, which is an excitatory neurotransmitter, which wakes us up at night. So, a lot of us in the menopause transition are already struggling with our cortisol waking us up at night. We're just adding gasoline to fire when we're putting alcohol in the perimenopausal time for sleep.
Mhm.
We don't detox as well in the perimenopausal period. And a lot of women will have a surge of estrogen before estrogen comes down. So they kind of have, we call them shark week periods, right? They're just disaster pants. And you're trying to clear excess estrogen and you're introducing alcohol, your liver can only process so much at once. It can't process that estrogen. And so then you're with a breast tenderness, passing clots the size of your fist, right? So it's not helping
Mm.
these systems that are already challenged in this transition time. I just love building relationships around social connection and trying to muster some courage and develop social connection that doesn't need alcohol as a lubricant. Can you go on a
Right.
hike with your friends? Can you go to a yoga class with your friends? Can you make something artistic with your friends? Does it have to involve alcohol? Or,
Right.
if you're like really strapped in, can you like have a wine spritzer and you have half a glass of wine and the rest is seltzer and really dilute it out?
I love that. Yeah, that's a stepping stone I recommend as well. Those seltzers. There's so many great non-alcoholic options these days too, like non-alcoholic beers, non-alcoholic wine, kombucha at bottle shops and things like that. And so that's a great option. But thanks for that explanation because that really makes a lot of sense about what is going on in the body. So when I have clients using CGMs and we're monitoring their blood sugar, often the first thing I do if they're finding they're having, weird numbers in the middle of the night, alarms are going off, or they're not sleeping as well, we look at that bedtime snack or the last thing they ate before bed. Was dinner balanced? Did they have enough protein? Did they have enough fat or was it straight carbs? Sometimes when we fix that, they still wake up in the middle of the night around a certain time. Is that like a cortisol? Is that the cortisol spike in the middle of the night for perimenopausal women?
Yeah, so it's really common, unfortunately. So your adrenals are making cortisol, stress hormone, and your hypothalamus in your brain, and they're kind of having this argument all night long. Wake her up! No, it's not time yet. Wake her up! No, it's not time yet. And so a lot of us, particularly when we're under stress, and so I think it's important to hold space for the fact that while perimenopausal women are going through all these changes, we're also trying to launch teenage children in a really complex world. And we're often feeling the pressure of aging parents. And so we're the sandwich generation. So we're undergoing a lot of hormonal physical changes while our social life, our psychosocial stressors are really at a fever pitch, right? So sometimes people are like, is this menopause? And I'm like, sometimes it's hard to extract that one thread out, right? In the midst of the storm of modern life as a 49-year-old, 53-year-old woman, right? So over the night, the adrenals and the hypothalamus are sort of having this conversation. And oftentimes the cortisol spike, that early morning cortisol push, get up, feed the dog, get the kids up, get out the door, go to work, that happens too early in the night. And so you'll have women who like wake up kind of with a start, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's which came first, the chicken or the egg. So sometimes they'll have a hot flash and then that'll wake them up. Sometimes they'll have the cortisol, which will then precipitate the hot flash. Sometimes there's no hot flash there at all. And so when we're thinking about ways to try to lower that nighttime cortisol, I think there are a lot of behavioral things we can do, and there are also a lot of there's some supplement things we can also try. So I don't know if your community is familiar with tapping. Some people call it emotional freedom technique.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard of that. Mm-hmm.
So there's fantastic data on tapping. Tapping is, I'm just going to say it. I think it's way easier than meditation, and it has been shown to lower stress hormone by 41%. Yeah,
Wow.
amazing, right?
Are you saying in the middle of the night doing that to go back to
Well,
sleep or just in general?
what I would recommend is there's a book called The Tapping Solution. They also have an app. The Breathe app also has tapping on it. I would encourage people to learn this as a skill. I do a tapping at night called deep sleep patterning because I sometimes have a hard time waking up in the middle of the night. And when I do the deep sleep patterning, my sleep on the Aura Ring is demonstrably better, like
Wow.
significantly better. So tapping is a behavioral thing we can do to kind of help that nighttime wakening. And in the supplement world, phosphatidylserine is a component of the fatty acid cell wall. And phosphatidylserine can help lower nighttime cortisol. So sometimes we'll add that at bedtime. And that can be another tool that can help people kind of sleep through the night better. But obviously, after you've worked with someone like Caroline and made sure that it wasn't that you had Alfredo pasta with breadsticks and your blood sugar went up and then it bottomed out, right? So you kind of have to get a little bit of data to make sure that
Right.
we've ruled out other causes, right? If this isn't a blood sugar issue, this is a cortisol issue.
I've heard about tapping, but more as, helping the body re-understand the somatosensory map. Does that have something to do with that? So, for instance, I've heard about it in the like if you had a small injury, you could tap another part of your body and then tap the place of the injury to help your body sort of understand that, hey, this is where the injury is and it's okay. Is that kind of in the same context? Like, what's the physiology behind that, or is that something you're?
So the points are acupressure points,
Okay.
and tapping in general is really trying to get you out of that fight or flight and into a rest and
Mhm.
digest or a parasympathetic state.
Mhm.
And so a lot of us, myself included, who might have a little bit more of a type A personality, a little bit running around like a chicken with their head cut off, if you ask someone to meditate, sometimes they have too much of a monkey mind to really sit in
Mhm.
stillness and do that, right? I bet a few of us can
Me.
relate to that, right? And so tapping is combining acupressure points with positive psychology. So let's say you wanted to tap on insomnia. You first start off with a monkey in the room. I'm really worried that I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. So you start on the side of your hand, top of your eyebrow, side of your eyebrow, under your eye, under your nose, under your chin, top of your collarbone, side of your whatever this is, your side of your body, and the top of your head like a monkey. And you start with a negative idea. I'm worried I won't be able to sleep tonight. And then you're moving towards that you're going to feel really good in the morning. So you're really just listening to positive psychology. They're almost telling you what to think while you're distracting your monkey mind by going through these tapping motions. So I think, Taylor, where it could be, you're getting yourself back into a parasympathetic state. And sometimes when the body is in an injury process and you're in pain, right, that's going to push you to a high cortisol sympathetic dominant state. I'm running away from the tiger. So I could see how tapping could be like, okay, let's get the body to reintegrate again. Let's get the body to feel safe. Hey, look, this other part of you isn't hurting, right? But that's how I understand tapping, is using these acupressure points combined with positive psychology has been really effective to lower cortisol. And in today's world, I don't know who, perimenopausal or not, I don't know who doesn't need that, right? And I just like it because it's not expensive. It's not taking bottles of pills. It's relatively simple.
And I think too, one of the things that you know, I've used, now I don't have this problem of, you know, having my thoughts run through my head all night long.
He's very type B.
But
Very type B.
but I have had it on occasion, and one of the things that has helped me so much is that, you know, not necessarily like gratitude, but even just like writing down or making a list and just giving whatever it is a place to exist that's outside of my body. And for me, that just, you know, it's gone. Like I don't have to think about it anymore, because I know that if I want to, I'll see it in the morning as soon as I wake up, and therefore has a place. It doesn't have to exist in here
Write
anymore.
it down, shut it, put it down, and go to sleep. Now that kind of brings me to, I've been hearing and learning a lot more about vagal toning exercises, the vagus stimulator. Do you recommend that, or what is your thought about that as a way to lower stress in the body and help with any GI effects from stress as well?
So, just in case people aren't familiar, Caroline is talking about vagus nerve exercises, and the vagus nerve is your 10th cranial nerve. It's coming actually behind your ear. So an ear exercise is another way to access that. We have a list of vagus nerve exercises we can upload with this episode. We can share with the Chain Effect community. So their ear exercises to do, it goes along kind of underneath your sternocleidomastoid muscle. So along the side of your neck, underneath your heart, by your liver, and then into your gut, and is afferent and efferent. So in doctor speak, that's you're receiving that, you're sending information from your brain to your gut. And then if you have inflammation in your gut, you're sending that inflammation back up to your brain. So it goes in both directions. So a lot of people can kind of relate to feeling really anxious and then maybe having to run to the bathroom and have diarrhea, that gut brain, very quick connection. It goes both ways. And the vagus nerve is so powerful because strengthening our vagus nerve is going to help our digestion. It's going to help our mood. It's going to slow down our heart rate. It's going to slow down our blood pressure. Again, it's going to get us into that parasympathetic, I'm safe, I'm resting, digesting, out of sympathetic, I'm in danger, I'm running away from the tiger. We use a lot of vagus nerve exercises in our practice. It's kind of like bread and butter. I think as we're thinking about this in the context of perimenopause, just to sort of interject that as our estrogen levels are changing, our gut slows down. So a lot of perimenopausal women will come in and they'll meet with Caroline, and we'll hear about this beautiful breakfast with the red cabbage and all these wonderful cruciferous vegetables. And they're like, dude, I am full of gas, right? Because their gut slowed down. And so we may want to replace some estrogen, but we may also really want to help them strengthen their vagus nerve. Again, it's free, right? Doing these exercises is something free. You can do it at home. The vagus stimulators, there's one called True Vega. The makers of True Vega spoke at IFM this year. I do much better with manual things that I can do by myself. I tried True Vega. I will just say that I'm probably an outlier. I had the opposite effect. So instead of it making me feel calm, it made me feel real agitated. And
Oh,
they were a great company to work with. I got my money back on all those things. I think that I, as an individual, am a little bit of an outlier. I do much better. I do an ear massage, like putting your finger inside your ear canal and making a C towards the back of your ear canal, just very slowly. Even just rubbing along your sternocleidomastoid muscle, gargling, humming, singing, anything that vibrates your voice box.
yeah.
I do much better with those than with the devices, but I know the devices have good data. And like I said, they presented at the IFM, Institute for Functional Medicine, this year. I just think that I'm a freak in that regard.
Yeah, no, but those are great things that you can do to yourself because I had some clients I was starting to recommend these exercises to. I said, you should really look into these. They were having the Monday jitters, but like to an extreme where every Monday when they'd have
Mhm.
to go into the office, they'd have some GI effects and they couldn't understand, was it the food that they got a little loose on the weekend, a little bit outside their plan, or was it the stress of work going into the office
Mhm.
Monday morning? So I said,
Mhm.
you can gargle, you can hum, you can do these sing loudly on your way to work. Maybe try some of
Mhm.
those things to help with that vagus nerve stimulation. So I think that's an awesome area that I have seen it expanding in popularity. And that's another great tool that women especially can use to decrease stress.
Absolutely. And it's not expensive. It's really well evidenced. So you're not going to hurt anybody with vagus nerve exercises.
So interesting, as I'm listening to this, I can't help but think, just as a society, it just feels like we just need to get that energy out though. Like to some degree, just expressing ourselves fully and then, sing loudly. Well, we're so, kept in at certain times and,
And being more in tune with our body.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It just makes me feel like we're a repressed, we have to have all these things to just kind of experience our body the way it was intended.
Well, and then, get outside, right? Get
Right.
away from the damn screen, turn off the social media, get outside, talk to a real person, see a tree, I mean,
Mhm.
I think let's go back to how
What's
our
that called?
bodies were meant to be treated. We
Tree
weren't meant
bathing? Is
to.
that
Yeah.
what that's called?
Forest bathing.
Forest
Forest
bathing.
bathing, yeah, yeah, go outside. So, yeah, absolutely. And the more we can, I mean, I know you guys have little kids, I have bigger kids, but the more that we're outside with our kids and encouraging our kids, especially as we see kids engaging with screens, engaging with social younger and younger, hey, the more they're in a sport, the more they're outside, they're on a team. All of these things can be great ways to sort of, have success in the world
And
and
failure.
yeah, and failure, exactly, and learning from failure.
Well, awesome. I think that, I learned a
Yeah.
lot from, I hadn't really ever heard about this tapping before. So you're blowing my mind with that. And yeah, I think a lot of our listeners are going to be interested in learning a little bit more about this vagus nerve toning too.
Yeah, and thank you for the explanation surrounding perimenopausal women, what's happening in the body, because it lasts a long time. I understand over 10 years it could last for a lot of women.
Right.
And so that's a lot of life and that's a very stressful period of life, you know, in general. And then having those symptoms all the time with increased stress is just we got to help women. We got to help more women, get through that and feel better. And so, I appreciate so much what you're doing.
Well, and likewise, I mean, what you guys are doing is great. I think as we're entering this new life transition and women are saying, what I'm doing isn't working, this is the time to build your team. You
Mm,
probably need some fresh eyes to look at your food with a nutritionist. You probably need a trainer. You probably need to make sure, if you haven't been an exerciser, it's not fair to say, go lift heavy shit and you've never learned to do a proper squat, right? So get some help. So I just am so grateful for you all at Chain Effect because you're helping people put into action all the things I'm trying to encourage
mhm.
them to do in the office.
Yes, yes, and have that accountability.
That's right.
Those frequent sessions to increase that accountability and then prevent injury for sure. Because the last thing you need is to get injured trying to build better habits with exercising.
Absolutely. So thanks, y'all.
Yeah.
I
Thank
will share
you.
some vagus nerve handouts with your community and send those your way. And have a great week.
Yeah. Have a great
You
week. I'm sure
too.
we'll see you soon.
All
All
right.
right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Check you
you.
later.
Thanks for listening to Menopause Rescue. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast and it helps you create some time and space to make this the best half of your life. If you've enjoyed this content, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. This helps other listeners find this resource and rescue and restore their health. If you enjoyed this topic and want to learn more, check out our resource guide for this episode. If today's podcast resonated with you and you want to take a deeper dive, check out my educational resources. We offer basic membership, which is an archive of over 100 videos on menopausal topics ranging from bone health to libido. We add to this archive every month, so the resource becomes richer and richer over time. If you're looking for a menopause expert and live in North Carolina, take our free online class and see if we're a match for your needs. It's called Are We a Good Fit? And is a quick and easy way to learn more about our practice and what it has to offer. Hey, this is Dr. Watson. This is just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for general information purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine. No doctor-patient relationship is formed, and any information you get from this podcast is considered educational only. You should make medical decisions with your healthcare provider. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice. Listeners should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition, and they should seek assistance from their healthcare professionals.